I think it's about -8, 9.
-9. That's good. That's good level.
Good level so we can compress you later.
Yeah.
This is a man who knows his sound, knows his settings.
Yeah, true.
Let me adjust the mic real quick. Gonna double check if I'm in the right.
Sure. Should I try my loudest level? Ah.
Testing. Yeah, I think the loudest is.
This is my loudest.
Your loudest is clipping.
Okay. That's fine. I'm not
I don't
gonna.
think you'll ever be that loud in
No.
this interview. All right, welcome.
Is it streaming now?
We're streaming now. We're
Oh,
live.
cool.
Yeah, welcome. How are
Hi,
you?
everyone. No one's gonna watch it anyway.
People will definitely watch. Definitely. We got avid fans. So this is Colony Kids SOS.
Yeah.
A bit in conjunction with Pride programming, which we've had this weekend and throughout the last few weeks, concluding this Friday. We had you for a night curated by Joseph from Videotage last Friday. If you missed that party, you missed a very good one.
Yeah.
But you can actually stream that back at the Eaton Facebook where you're watching this. And I would say also, if you're watching this on Instagram, the Facebook stream is a lot more stable, so you might want to change over to there. So yeah, this is Colony Kids SOS, where we invite partners, artists we admire, and kind of interrogate the artistic process and interrogate them in general on everything they've been up to, because we know what they've done last summer. So yeah, tonight we have Mr. Alex Yiu, a.k.a. Alexmalism, a.k.a. Any more a.k.a.s?
No. Well, I prefer not using my Chinese name, you know.
Oh, okay.
Because whenever people try to speak my Chinese name in in an English manner, it sounds kind of terrible.
Really?
Like, you know, like you Xiu Long, and I like, if people don't really know how to speak Cantonese, they end up saying me like Xiu Long, and that's.
Does it sound like something else?
That sounds like, you know, I was like being burned.
Really?
Like being burned. Like, you know, Xiu Long means like, you know, you overcook something, you know.
Oh, I see.
Sounds so terrible. Xiu Long.
Xiu Long.
I got burned. I got like, you know, overcooked.
All right, we're just gonna call you Alex for the sake of this
Alex,
interview.
it's fine.
So, who are you? Who are you for the people who don't know? Can you introduce yourself?
I'm Alex. Well, I think everyone knows me about me being a DJ, and some might know me since like when I was doing sound art. But like some people who know me for years, like maybe knowing me since like when I was studying my music degrees. I was a composer as well. So like I think like I'm still consider myself a musician. Like not sure about I'm not gonna use the word like, you know, composer or sound artist anymore, because I feel like those are very old school way to, you know, refer me now. You know, but I think like, you know, well, just Alex. You know, I did sound, I did music, I did some weird shit, and I also, well, basically like, you know, now I'm actually also like a researcher in School of Creative Media in CTU. So I my research area is also about music, but I'm focusing on the surgeons, or like, you know, the, you know, deconstructed club music as well. But I'm also looking into Hong Kong club scene, underground club scene, which is part of my research.
We're gonna talk on deconstructed club music at length in a bit.
That's a big topic.
That's a big topic, yeah. But what about your undergrad and your schooling before?
Well, like I'm just like most Hong Kong people. I did my secondary school in Hong Kong, and in a pretty bad school actually, like, you know, low tier school, and then I end up like, you know, getting fucked up with my exams and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I got myself into doing a diploma at the Baptist University.
Okay.
So the diploma is like a 2 years program for those who graduate from middle schools.
Oh, okay.
So after I finished my diploma, I got back into the same university,
Mm-hmm.
the same department in music. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, I spent almost like 5 years back then, like studying at Baptist University in music.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah, you can count that to be like classically trained, musicians or composers or whatsoever. So I was classically trained.
At that stage, were you also growing up playing the piano, or?
No, I only played the violin. You know, um, this was my niche, I would say, but I guess you know, I was like kind of like still like searching for the stuff that I was like been looking into, especially in music. So I was trying to play uh the baroque violin. I
Mm-hmm.
was interested in Asian classical music, but I was also interested in music composition. So it makes me to decided which road I'm gonna take. At the final year when I was doing my bachelor degree, so I decided to go for music composition instead.
Mm-hmm.
I
And
feel like that time, like to do music composition will probably make me a cooler person than like playing the baroque violin.
and you also incorporate some of that violin playing into your current set, right?
I'm still play the violin. Like there was a time, like still like after, well, at least like for a few years before I doing my PhD, I was actually having a long period of time that I was a freelance violin teacher
Mm-hmm.
and also like a music theory teacher. It
Mm-hmm.
was like across since I was studying my music degree until I you know going to study abroad. And after I came back, I did a lot of stuff, but end up being a freelance violin teacher as well.
Oh,
Like
really?
like it was a period because like there's some kind of like a safe zone for us. Like in one day if I can't really think what I'm gonna do, maybe I just go back to teach violin.
Oh, that's like what you're gonna fall back on. That's your fallback plan.
Yeah, that was that mentality of like people who study music.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to also mention Goldsmiths, the masters they have from
Yeah.
there, right? And that's in.
That's in 2014 and to 15. That was like 1 year after I graduated from my bachelor degree,
Mm-hmm.
and the questions you want to ask is like, why do I go there and study?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a long story actually.
Okay, condense it.
Well, let me try. Like, so basically, I after I graduated from Baptist, I tried to, well, persuade a career as a composer because I was studying as a composer. I studied compositions anyway. So, but like, somehow, I feel like the environment I was living in Hong Kong is kind of hostile for people who trying to become a composer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also it's a very small scene and it's so competitive and like and also like people wise like especially for music composition, it's like it's all condensed into just the few hundred people that you almost met every concert,
Mm-hmm.
every like circumstances, and they are all controlled by some sort of like a guild, like a society. So oh my god, like it's all like there's a lot of, I would say, like, I won't say politics, but more like a lot of like um interest, where
Mm-hmm.
people are fighting for their own interest in things and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it was difficult. And I at that time I was lucky because there was like a youth competitions in Hong Kong where I wrote in and then I got a first prize. I thought that might be like a stepping stone for me to actually to maybe I should think about to do uh MFA in music composition further. But I would like to stay in Hong Kong. So I that time in 2015 2013 I was actually applied both CUHK and Hong Kong U in the music composition program. And unfortunately I didn't get both schools. They reject my application. Both schools reject my applications, and I was like, oh my god, what the hell I'm gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
Like and then like there was a time. Okay, let's maybe I should think about maybe I should go overseas anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And but like go overseas is actually very expensive
Yeah.
as well. So what I'm gonna do so there was a time like I tried to apply a scholarship from the cash
Yeah.
cash
Composers and
the Composers and Authors Society of Hong Kong, and
yeah.
then like, hey, they gave me a scholarship
Oh, okay.
to do study abroad. So hey, why not? And then like I was choosing in between like University of Birmingham and Goldsmiths, and I was like, hey, I just want to go to London and see what's going on there. So I
Nice.
decided to study at Goldsmiths. So basically, that's the reason why I end up in Goldsmiths.
Okay. Okay. Nice. So that's actually an alternative route for anybody who might be looking for a scholarship to get one from cash. Because is that unusual for them to give scholarships like that?
Well, the thing is like I was in a kind of like prestige position to apply for the scholarship because like that scholarship only for people who study music,
And usually classical music, not
usually
electronic.
classical music.
Yeah.
And then I was like trying to like talk over to the person at cash saying like I'm just doing some music creative stuff but still music program because like they only sponsor people who study music as well, like and my program that I did at Goldsmith still under the music department.
Mm.
So like everything I fall in the category but like it which allows me to just do things that more like obscene that were not done in Hong Kong before.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward to now, you are doing research on deconstructed club. How does that the world of academia respond to your research topic, and what department does it fit into in that world?
Well, I think it's too early to say because like I think like for at least like for the last 20 years or 10 years at least like there's been like a growing interest in the academias on uh, the EDM culture, the nightlife scene.
EDM for everyone listening is electronic dance
Yeah,
music.
electronic dance music culture, but like in academic, like they short from EDMC,
Mm.
electronic dance music culture.
Mm-mm.
They really like they really like have a growing interest, like looking into what EDM culture is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like my topic is already like seems to be a little bit too advanced and too niche
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the the things that they going on, because like when I was looking into like EDMC culture and then those kind of studies, like they only like start going looking into the, social medias and all sort of like internet platforms like going on just within the last 10 years. and and a lot of time like the ideas that they were thinking about EDMC culture is has a lot of do with genres,
Mm.
has a lot of do with like underground culture, and that has a lot of do with how people differentiate themselves from the mainstream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they really like took that direction, and then also a lot of like focus on drug usage, drug culture, and also the history of the EDM, electronic dance music, the history, like how things develop. And
So would you say they're less interested in mainstream dance music and what people might call IDM, like intellectual dance music,
I think like
or more IDM, I would say.
I think like there was actually less interested in IDM. That's for sure, because I
Okay.
feel like there's a kind of like interesting paradox is like they actually pay a lot of attention to mainstream EDM culture,
Mm.
but they don't really have much to say about the niche stuff,
Mm.
avant-garde stuff, and then the more experimental stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because like I think like especially the underground experimental music, like there been some research done on it, like there's like difficulty to actually define the research subject.
Mm.
Experimental, what do you mean by experimental?
Mm-hmm.
And then what kind of like context does it mean by experimental?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole studies of experimental music in academia are actually more leaning toward the sound studies.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's a legacy of experimental music and avant-garde music in academics, but probably less so for electronic avant-garde. Like I'm thinking of people like John Cage and
Yeah,
um, I don't know, Raymond Scott, all these
yeah,
electronic, Bob Moog,
yeah.
but less so when you think of it in the context of I don't know 2009 and after.
Even
So
effect trees are being
yeah,
not properly researched, I think.
yeah, yeah. So let's go to your creative process to talk micro and then macro. What is your creative process like, and how does a song come about? Do you use traditional methods um, to come up with song structure, melodies, etc.? And then
Well, I think like this is I don't know, like this is a I'm still kind of like looking the way that how I do music, some from time to time, is that I have kind of like creative rush that
Mhm.
going on in my head,
Mhm.
that I feel like I always like waiting, or maybe not. Wow, that sounds kind of terrible, to wait for a moment to rush that creativity.
Mhm.
That like for me, like TKO, like the last EP I did like 2 years ago, was actually coming from that rush.
Mhm.
So it's like a period of time I was kind of like super creative, and then like just within 2 months I complete everything for the EP, that I feel like that's the thing I want to present.
Mhm.
And from that creative rush, in between that period I was like kind of like low energy, not sure what kind of stuff I'm gonna do. Maybe I should trying to doing some more side project, or maybe trying to collab with somebody, but like it ends up like like so like it's kind of like periodic. Oh shit, I spilled my water.
It's okay. Many things have been spilled in this room before.
Oh yeah, for sure. So basically, like creative wise, I always leaning toward that moment where I'm having a rush for that creativity.
That's when you strike. You have like a moment of genius or a moment of lucidity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that TKO project from 2018, which everyone can check on Spotify, um, it was completed in 2 months during that type of period.
Yeah, I think it was complete in that summer, like around, well, actually 3 months, or maybe like from June to August, somehow that period. Like when I was like kind of like not thinking about like what I'm gonna do, so let's do something.
Yeah,
That kind of moment, or that kind of status.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for people who might not be on um, on the wavelength of deconstructed music, some people might see your elements of techno, electronic. I hear a lot of video game soundtrack influence in it. I don't know if that's on purpose or not. And then of course classical, like your background. Um, can you briefly explain for people who are not familiar what is this deconstructed club music? Or maybe start, what is club music, if we want to start really rudimentary. What is club music and what is deconstructed club music?
Well, before we talk about the constructed club music, we definitely want to talk about what club music. The thing is, it's so weird. Is like you don't really seen people talk about, or they use the word club to call club music.
Mm-hmm.
Before, like they would call it dance music, right?
Yeah.
and that
Or
I
even
think like
disco before
yeah,
that.
disco and even EDM, like electronic dance music, but not electronic club music, right? And the appearance of club music, the word club has to do with like some American subculture where like Baltimore club and Jersey club, those kind of music like they're coming from as that period of time. I think it was like late 90s or 90s, like you have Jersey club and also Baltimore club.
Yeah.
And so like they are the probably like some earlier pioneer using the word club in that in that sense. But eventually, like especially for like around like 210, like people start picking up the word club in I think UK but also New York. To like there was like labels like Fate to My and Night Slugs back then. They was doing some kind of like dance music that which is like they never really like bothered to put a name tag or genre to call the music. And they even like they even have a very famous series of EP called the Club Construction thing. And then like construction and club, like they use the terms extensively to call like those beat kind of like materials for the club, the dance floor as club. And I think like that's the time when around 210, early 210 to maybe 2012,
2012,
2013, people start picking the usage of club. And then also you have people in New York like ghetto gothic, like Total Freedom. Those people like they've been throwing a lot of like rave underground parties with primarily like, focus in LGBTQs and also like black and brown community in New York. And a lot of a lot of people been talking about how Total Freedom's DJ, because the way that he DJs has nothing to do with styles. Not really, not no style, but like more like he's really just put everything just whatever, throw anything that he likes to the dance floor. That kind of attitude, like he really like goes with the flow instead of like sticking around with like certain kind of genre or
rules, yeah.
and stuff. And that has a huge influence on the dance floor or the club culture in the 210s, because I think like there's a lot of people start picking up, or maybe they subconsciously got the same kind of like phenomenon, like they're not really concerned about like the genres or things that they're gonna put onto the floor, but like they're really trying to play good stuff, good music, and that kind of energy. And then eventually like maybe the two things met at some point, maybe in Europe or maybe in like big cities like London, Berlin, and even New York. And it kind of like became some sort of like a new phenomenon. And then also like at the same time, like by the end of like 2000, at the last decade, by the end of millenniums, we have SoundCloud and Bandcamp, like these kind of platforms, like surging on the internet. And then it became more important, like people picking up this platform to share music, and then to stream music. And eventually like a lot of people, like there was a time you have a lot of like subcultures, online subcultures going on. Like you have the witch house, you have the PC music, you have like some weird like C punk, like
Yeah.
what kind of like the names like is so weird, but like there's a lot of like subculture things, or even vaporwave going on on the internet.
Kind of a democratization of
Yeah.
of the sounds.
And then yeah, exactly. So these kind of like things going on, and like it kind of like creates some sort of like prelude of like what's going on in the 210s, because like there's like a the whole the palette of sound that are available to the producers are so phenomenal, is also so infinite. People can just, they can start experimenting with all kind of like weird sound to create some new weird club beats that nobody would ever listened to in the past. And then it became such a trend, and also like globalization, where like like people who are doing this kind of stuff is not only coming from Europe or America, but they could actually like people in Beijing, Shanghai, Japan, Taipei, and even like I think there's like I know like Slickback, he's from Africa, I think. And also in Latin America.
Like everywhere. So basically, the barrier of entry is no more. As far as spreading what you made that day, even can be uploaded that night, and you can have 1,000 likes by the time you go to sleep. For you, as a classically trained musician, how do you balance like these new methods of deconstructed club, which is postmodern, if you will, with everything you learned classically? Do they clash? Are they in harmony, or?
Well, I think like I think it's like complex for me. Like when I was like a teenage, I spent most of my time listening to classical music. And then like after I graduated from my degree, I was actually trying to recover from that trauma.
Is it listening to classical? Is it traumatic?
Well, it's somehow like it was part of me growing up as a teenage, like listening to just only classical music. But at one point, I feel like I was kind of disconnected from the culture, from the pop culture in Hong Kong. So I'm trying to pick up the culture so badly after I graduated. And then like I feel like, and then like the moment that I went study at Goldsmiths, like I was like I actually rethink a lot, like what tradition or what is the Western music tradition is about. To look back into the things that I've learned, to look back into my own tradition, maybe like let's say Chinese music, because like my mom was a traditional Chinese opera singer. To look back to my mom's culture, and eventually like I feel disconnected by both culture, like classical or even Chinese traditional culture, because like okay, so when I was in school, I got exposed to Chinese music history and stuff, but I don't really find any connection whatsoever like to those tradition. Like I don't grown up listening to those kind of stuff anyway. But like classical music, I feel like I was being forced, or maybe I forced myself to classical music. And I enjoyed it, but I feel like I was being taken, taken like something out of myself, like some original self, like from listening to this kind of music, because I'm still listening to music of like the same old master who died like 300 years ago, that kind of feeling. And okay, so like the moment when I going back to music, that I after I finished my degrees in sonic art, I start making sound art. But oh my god, that's even worse. Like talking about art making, but I'm not gonna go into it. So basically, like I was trying to go back to music after I'm done with sound art, and I think like the moment that I try to learn how to make club music, learn how to make beat, it's actually trying to de-learn the stuff that I learned in the past. I try to just I'm not gonna care about like those counterpoint harmonies, and I'm still using those kind of stuff. Those are tools, but not in the way that I I learned it.
So it seems that there's always this question of you can't break the rules unless you know them. So I think while you say you were kind of held hostage by classical music early on, I think underneath, maybe subconsciously, it does inform you breaking those rules.
Well, there's no rule be broken. I mean, but the thing is, like there's some kind of like a subconscious going on. Like when I was like, there's one track I did called the Velodrome that I was actually using a very a very common minimalist technique when I was doing the music. I was taking like a bit of like a repetitive pattern, and I kind of like keep you know repeating the thing, and then I get another part going in, and then I kind of like a phase shifting a little bit, kind of like minimalist kind of thing going on, and then every part of the music is divided from the same motif that
is it like an ostinato?
Like an ostinato, more like motific development in the music. So basically dun 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 dun, dun and then I shift, and then like shift one beat and then shift one beat, those kind of thing.
Yeah.
This sounds it makes me sounds kind of like intellectual, but like just like people been doing this in the 70s anyway. But like there was something that I was like trying to investigate to see how are there any like things that I could use to put into like contemporary music, composition technique into club music, and I feel like when I start to make club music, I actually learned a lot of new things from or maybe or it reminds me a lot of things that I learned in the past, but that I forget, or maybe I just put it into my brain, because like club music is basically electronic music.
Yeah.
And electronic music, you have a lot of like different kind of criteria. Like you have to think about like the timbre. You have to think about frequencies and kind of stuff. And those kind of things that I used to learn in the school, even when I was doing my sonic art degree. Like, but like those are a lot of things that I kind of like I wasn't. Oh, let me admit, I wasn't an electronic music person before I go into electronic music. So I never really think I would actually doing electronic music, because like hell no, I was playing the violin. How am I gonna be an electronic musician?
So speaking of that criteria, do you feel like Deconstructed has that same criteria where deconstructed musicians or producers kind of strive for like a certain intellectualism when it comes to production and composition, and I guess it lends itself to, some might say it's like elitism when it intended to be something that was a counter to the EDM scene that was that many black and queer and Latinx people didn't fit in. Do you feel like there's people who make experimental deconstructed for the sake of it being experimental?
That's a big question. But like I feel like there's two part of the question. Is that I feel like the first about talking about the intellectualism in electronic music, I think it's always there since like the time when when they're doing IDM and maybe even like earlier stuff, like even in experimental electronic music scene, like but like we have to really see like what kind of people, I would say like during the time, like those people who are actually doing this kind of intellectualization of experimental or electronic music was predominantly white people. And that's what I experienced when I was in UK, because like I went to like one experimental music show, and oh my god, all white people. Wait, I'm in London, right? No, I thought there was like quite a lot of like black people or brown people living in London, but like why is like all white people in Cafe Otto? So I just realized like experimental music, or it's quite white in a sense.
A bit, yeah. The IDM is a bit of a chin.
Even IDM is also quite white in a sense, and the way they try to intellectualize the music is, I don't know, like to reinforce the like the power, the dynamics, to allow them to actually have more on the music.
Yeah, you can't sit at this table. You don't fit. This doesn't fit. That doesn't fit these rules. It doesn't fit this BPM.
Yeah, exactly. Like EDM culture and DJ culture, especially ones like being appropriated by white people. Oh my god, like techno purists, like why, like what the hell, like people start calling themselves like a techno purist, purist techno, whatever, like like I thought that was like coming from like black culture, and back in the time there was like playing funk music with beats and stuff, experimenting with stuff, like even like if you like go to like one gig with underground resistance, they're still like doing a live set with a lot of like live instrument going on whatsoever, like they're still like pushing the sound, but then like you end up having like most predominantly white people,
Yeah.
like listening to like I don't know, deep techno or whatever you call it, like the same beat, like
Yeah, that's a big issue with everything happening in the States, especially now with the erasure of black artists in these art forms.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's a huge discussion. We won't get totally into that, but
We can't
your
get
homework
into
Thursday.
that, like but the things about like LGBTQ culture, or maybe like brown and black people in deconstructed club music, and I do see that has to do with like how a lot of those people being marginalized, in the club scene, in the in the music culture, and then they are really striking for like to make their own space within this culture by pushing the sound to a certain like well, I would say like experiment, or maybe try to 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 explore like the ways, the expressions,
expression,
like,
yeah.
because like um it is not that they couldn't like fit into techno scene, but the thing is like this is not that kind of sound, or maybe this is not that kind of expression they're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And how would you like put like well, let's say, okay, techno used to be black and now become so white, and then you like putting a black DJ to do techno now, and then it became kind of like disconnected somehow, like
Yeah.
and then like maybe they have better things to do instead of like the whitewashed techno, right? And then if you put like black artists to play techno, but in the styles of the white kind of techno, that's a bit tokenism.
Yeah.
That's become a tokenism.
Yeah. It's basically people who are pushed to the margins because they feel like they didn't have a space, and then once they get their own thing going on, then like capitalism comes around like, hey, what you got over here? And then they kind of lose their identity again, and then repeat,
Yeah,
Washington
exactly.
repeat. Which actually brings me to my next topic. How do you feel about the current intersection of pop and club music? We have a lot of artists on the top 40 Billboard charts, if you will, who've really embraced this deconstructed sound, such as Charlie XCX or Sophie. You can probably hear at majority of fashion shows right now, where this used to be this really kind of uneasy listening experience. It's you can hear it now in a lot of pop productions. What do you feel about that?
I mean, like this is really just a question of like some sort of like whether there's an egg or whether there's a chicken first, some kind of questions, like because eventually like I feel like this really depends on how we see like those fashion shows or pop culture as some form of like capitalist, or maybe some sort of like industry thing, that are they gonna like taking advantage of this form of like underground movement or not. But eventually there's just like a repetition of the history, like history been doing the same thing with like punk culture, with like street culture, and all the culture in the back, like they're all like being recouped back into the pop culture, is which serve the the industry, where like as some sort of like you know maybe appropriation, or maybe like in a form of like you know capitalism, I would say. Like there's, I feel like there's not, especially in like such a liberal society, there's no one gonna stop it from you stealing my underground culture whatsoever, but they already like like get inspired by it or whatever. And for some artists, like let's say Charlie XCX, she actually does work with like those PC music guys, and and that's how things get big and the sounds get more phenomenal because of some key figures in the game to promote the sound. And Sophie or Arca, like those people who like before they famous, they been like working with like big names like Kanye West or Madonna, like those people. And I think like there's always like things with underground scene or culture, like maybe a generation thing, like but I feel it's kind of like the effect of generation is diminishing in these kind of like field or subfield of the culture, because I feel like even the like maybe they're using TikTok or not, but like a lot of stuff when things happen on the internet are really bound by the convergence of things that like people just share things on internet, and it became such a huge hot mess of
Yeah, once you release something, you have really no control over what
yeah,
happens.
there's so no control of things on the internet whatsoever, like
And a lot of these companies have young interns who are working for directors, and they're like, "Oh, check this out," and like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's what's hot."
yeah. And I feel like I'm not like is it like, are we saying like the future is grim, or are we suggesting?
I think it's hopeful. I mean, I like to think so.
Yeah, I feel like but the moment is like I feel like a lot of time like we seems to like trying to push the society into some sort of like a anti-capitalist or like a socialist kind of thing, but it seems like it never happens in a sense.
Yeah.
Like if it really pushing forward, then like I feel like somehow as someone grown up in Hong Kong, but until now I feel like most of the stuff I read on Facebook are American politics,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh my god, like
Well, I think it's just a matter of exploitation. And I guess, I mean, people say cultural appropriation. I think the better term for it is economic accreditation, if you will, where a lot of things are made by those people on the margins, and they never get the due credit for it. So I think that's what rubs people the wrong way.
I feel like this is a ethical questions, like we see like we always happen like appropriation, or maybe like be someone artwork being taken by some famous designer, and then like without credit, and oh my god, like that is like a I don't know, like I've been following like Diet Prada
Oh, I've heard about that just like a few weeks ago.
Instagram.
Yeah.
And literally every designers, everything they be putting on the runway are almost like 100% appropriation of things that in the past.
Yeah.
That's actually like, I don't even know how to deal with it, because like that's almost like part of the culture, right?
Yeah, there are no new ideas.
Like things are being appropriate, and like, or maybe like drum and bass, the same almond break and being reused, throughout the period. And then it's like, oh my god, I actually read about like the fate of the drummers who did the almond break, and then he ended up dying on the street.
But I read the other day that they did some type of crowdfunding for him. I don't know how much it raised.
I think after he passed away.
Maybe just like for his family.
Yeah. And then I feel like a bit sorry about like that guy, and thing is like sampling culture is really like nowadays is everyone sample. The thing is, but then like not everyone got paid by the sample they use.
Yeah, of course. Sampling and copyright, that's a whole nother issue. But if you do, I mean, I would say if you do make a hit, and this is for you as well, if you make a hit and you use the sample in it, it's probably right to pay some percentage of publishing.
Yeah, I think it does, but I feel like it's really like as I everyone knows the industry. They have a proper procedure of like sample cleansing, or like they call it like some sort of like a surface people they
So to
can
replay.
get to use, and then to try to hire like a lawyer to like
Yeah,
list out
yeah.
all the like samples he used and try to claim how much
Yeah.
percentage goes into the copyright thing. And then I feel like particularly with pop culture is copyright in pop culture is such a huge mess. And then I think like in Hong Kong, and that kind of like consensus is not really that established yet, especially dealing with these kind of like copywriting with sampling culture, because like well there's like people doing hip hop or maybe like lo-fi things in Hong Kong, but not like they're big enough to really like.
Yeah, we're talking about a postmodern form where most people aren't making hits,
No.
and their thing is just on SoundCloud with less than 1,000.
Yeah.
So that's I want to talk about your DJ sets though.
Oh, okay.
What is your approach when you're preparing for a given evening, such as last Friday? Are you trying to take the crowd on a journey? Are you trying to kind of just play bangers that you've downloaded in the last like few weeks? Are you trying to challenge the audience? Like, what is the approach?
But the thing is like there's like a give and take when I'm DJing in a certain specific theme event. Like the last DJ I did was like an LGBTQ event, and then I was thinking who I'm gonna like play next after me and who's playing before me. And like I definitely wanted to bring more like spice to the dance floor, but not this time, like not last time, like for the LGBTQ party, because like because like I know the guy who played after me is Calvin.
Kelvin T, where you at?
Calvin T. And then like Calvin's DJ style is like very typical chaotic good.
Yeah.
Like chaotic but good.
He challenges his audience for sure.
Yeah, he's really challenging the audience. And then like for me, before like Calvin, I have to make sure like the audience are dancing and staying at the dance floor to build up energy for Kevin T to take over.
Okay. So you're playing like the role of kind of an opening DJ and thinking of your set in the context of the whole night.
Exactly. Like
Okay.
I feel like as a DJ, like different DJs have a different approach, but for me, like I do read the dance floor.
Yeah. Kelvin T, you listening? Alex died for your sins.
I mean, I read the dance floor to see how they react to the music, and to see how like how the people react to the music, and to actually to see how am I gonna to kind of like spice it up, the dance floor. And this is like sometimes like you have a night when you have like 4 DJs, and then if you are the middle one, there's the things that you have to think, oh, who's before me. So like there was like the voguing competition or voguing performance before me, so and I have to maintain the energy after that kind of like hype moment.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I couldn't like but at the same time couldn't like taunt trying to put too much exotic shit on the dance floor because like people are gonna get scared immediately. So I have kind of like that last time my tactic is trying to be I won't say mass appeal, but it was actually kind of mass appeal, but more like to try not to
kind of hold steady.
Yeah.
To kind of hold the line. Yeah, I feel you. We have about 10 more minutes, and I have about 3 or 4 more questions. So let me kind of race through these. I'm gonna pivot to your work as a curator. You did just across the hall from us here.
Oh yeah.
You did an exhibition at Tomorrow Maybe last October.
It was actually my first time being a curator.
Yeah, entitled Play Boredom Worship.
Yeah.
And like, what was the theme and focus behind that? And just reflecting on that, how did you select the artists. I'm sure they were all your friends. And
Yeah.
what was the brief that you gave them to make it a cohesive show?
Yeah. I just like, throw the ball out of the ground, out of the field, and then let them play around with the ball. Maybe that's the best analogy. Because I feel like, I was like, I was working as a sound artist for a period of time. And I experienced like, working with a curator where like, just being, to create some sort of like a work being put into the context.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really work for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized like if I'm gonna like, like do some like create a very specific topics for the artist to create some very specific work out of the topic, it's not gonna work. Though the artworks will probably end up kind of crap.
Yeah.
And I just like, just trying to like, the way I put my artistic the curatorial statement is very open. And I just try to, kind of like give them like a blank, blank check, just let them to fill in the blank to see how they, put in, to things into practice and stuff. And I think like, when I was like as a curator during the show, I was more concerned about is the setup, the technicality aspect of the show, to make sure the wall is built, to make sure the space is, well managed, and to make sure they are not like, to make sure that things are putting well together.
Mm-hmm.
To try to work with the artists to make sure the things is,
that they get everything that they need and
yeah,
proper
exactly.
presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Go ahead.
because like I at that moment I feel like, the statement is already not the most, it's not the most important thing anyway. It's only just some sort of like, what is it, like what is the analogy for like,
Facilitator? Or
yeah, a facilitator.
Yeah. So those
artists who are more visual artists, as well as your musical peers, what is the how would you define this generation of all those artists in music and visual arts and fashion, if you will, or how would you describe this generation of Hong Kong artists in 2020 right now?
Well, I mean, like, it's so diverse anyway. Like, they're all really doing different kind of stuff. And maybe, like, I feel like I'm not a kid anymore. Like, I'm 30 years old, and then gonna be 31st years old this year later. And I won't say I have seen enough, though. But, like, I feel like, it does have a. Well, I don't want to be so specific about that kind of energy, but should I say it more chaotic?
Mm-hmm.
Not sure about like the term, but I feel like there's some sort of like a very chaotic energies going on in Hong Kong's
born out of.
Hmm?
What do you think? What do you think the roots of that are? Without maybe getting too specific.
I don't know, like I do think like there's people who've been doing more like commercial stuff, and they're more falling into that kind of like hipster-ish kind of thing, or maybe like or the kind of like nostalgic or hauntological, we call it, like in academic words, with like all the revival of the 80s and 90s stuff. But we also see like some people are taking the more chaotic avant-garde way, like putting shows all night, or maybe like some kind of like some people call this post-internet, because like I don't know how they got influenced by 3D aesthetic and chaotic subjects, chaotic objects, vibrant color and stuff. I mean, but also maybe like politics, also trying to be quite political in terms of form and styles.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when we see things that being chaotic, is that chaotic means like the things are not being under control, and then also is a form of potentiality with things that are being chaotic. and then we also see like infinite possibilities in chaotic, and then I feel like which is actually a good thing because like, and you see energies in chaos, and I think this is what captures like a lot of my artworks or friends' work that I know are working with, and I'm not as chaotic as them, to be honest, but like I feel like there's certainly some sort of like energies like going on with young artists in Hong Kong, whether it's like kind of like what's it called like a
resourceful,
not resourceful, but more like to be more defendants, or like like strong, or like yeah, whatever. I couldn't think of
independent.
a word. No, not independence, but more like energy, where like you try to defend, or maybe like try to respond.
Okay. I see. To kind of reinsert yourself and like reestablish your identity in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So you wore a lot of hats. We just over the last hour we've talked about you as a composer, as a teacher, as a producer, as a DJ. Is there like a common thread that ties all of these things together? And are there any other areas that you want to venture in? Do you want to like make a film or have a line of clothes or anything like that?
Well, I'm pretty much happy about the things that I've been doing.
Yeah.
Trying to make new music recently, and then like all the common theme of all these things is like trial and error, or maybe like the what's it called, like the failure of somebody trying to get a life. The common theme of common people.
So are there projects in the pipeline?
Actually, yeah, I do think like this is a common theme in my life, whether I want to be a composer and then end up being a sound artist, but end up being like a club music producer, but now being a researcher, because I like whenever I decide to do something, or whenever I change to do something, is the moment when I realize like like the things, or maybe the things, or maybe like it's not really like how can I say, like ideal, or maybe like people that I met in those places are not ideal. Like you kind of like work yourself around with those things and people, but the moment that I decided to change is I asked myself, hey Alex, I still want to do that? Because like I feel like the moment if I'm gonna make a decision for my career is like I think about, hey, am I gonna end up being a boring sound artist, doing my work, presenting my work in an art gallery, and then try to chit chat with those people, collectors and stuff? No, I don't want to be that kind of person. It's so it's almost like you're putting yourself into sort of like a reality situation to think about like what I'm gonna become if I'm gonna do that thing. On and on, right? If you think about, okay, so now I'm going back to become an academic, which is also actually not as good, idealistically, it's not that, it's not much difference than maybe being, a contemporary artist. But I mean, like, at least like I try to put myself into, the culture more like, with more like in line with people that I working on, especially with my own research that focusing on music and club culture. And to be honest, at this moment I realized, okay, there's never gonna be an ideal position,
right, yeah,
no matter you're a sound artist, composers, and there always some kind of like a shit, some kind of like people that you don't want to deal with.
yeah.
And maybe like now in this moment of night, trying to going back to into academic, is that to find the at least like to compromise, or maybe to realize a position that you don't suffer as much as
Suffer the least.
you know.
There's no ideal, and you're always kind of fighting against this path that is kind of set out in front of you, and maybe the easy path, but not the desired path.
Yeah, I think like a lot of a lot of people, and like there's so few people end up being someone like
That they actually want to be.
exactly. And even like if you they will tell you like I'm just not only lucky, but I like putting a lot of hard work, like I've been like doing a lot of shit in their life.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I guess there's never really a perfect circumstance for that. And
Yeah. I think the important thing is that you're close to it, and proximity to it matters. Whether you're on, the side of it that you want to be or not, you're close to it and it's still within reach, whatever that final goal is. Here's a question we asked. This is kind of a lighthearted question we asked Photon, Likey, and Kelvin.
Mm-hmm.
What's your exercise regimen?
Exercise regimen?
Yeah. You going to the gym?
Yeah, I do.
How often?
4 times or 5 times a week. But depends on my energy, because I'm more like a gym rat, but like I would say like like for like last week my energy was low.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really like do much heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
So I might just change doing some more light stuff in the gym.
So are you more strict about your working on music?
Or exercising?
I think like musically wise, I mean, to be honest, I have to picking up my production skills, because like I spend time watching a lot of YouTube tutorial, to watching people how to make music. But those kind of things always put me into a very difficult position. It's like, am I gonna learn something from watching this video by making some kind of sound? Am I gonna make use of those techniques? And most of the time it ends up not, I end up not using those kind of things in my music. And that's so weird, like it happens, and then like I might just like maybe just spend like a week or two or month to focus on making music. But like I feel like going to gym is just to make sure I'm alive. Because I think like the moment that I established that habit going to gym makes me a more stable person.
I see.
Because like if I'm gonna going to gym, and I'll probably suffer a lot from like mood swing.
Yeah.
And making out of nowhere, not sure where I'm doing at home.
It's important then, yeah. It's part of the process, you can say.
Yeah, it's part of the process, and then like at the gym I could just work out and I feel better.
And then you go and smash your keyboard just because you're so strong.
Well, yeah, at least like I have the energy to do the things that I need to, like not like I have to feeling bad about that day and not doing anything at all, that kind of moment.
Thank you, Alex.
No
I
problems.
think that wraps up everything. Do you have any final shout outs to anybody?
Any questions from the audience? No.
Let me see. I don't know. We can check on Facebook real quick. I know Chantal's listening. Do you have any questions, Chantal?
I don't think so, but yeah, thanks for watching.
Yes, thank you everybody for watching. This will be on Mixcloud and Spotify within the week if you want to listen back. Wait, 12 comments.
What is like?
Oh, it's just maybe it's speaking.
What? Isumi sent me a message. What is Amanojaku?
What's that?
I don't know.
She said
Amanojaku. It's like a.
Sounds Japanese, but I don't know what she's talking about.
Let me know about it, Isumi.
Yeah, Izumi, shout out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it. Are you playing anywhere in the next couple of weeks that you can promote?
Frankly, no. I think like I don't think there's any gigs.
No. Are you promising an album in 2020? Is it exclusive?
I'm still deciding whether it's gonna be in 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
I think I'm still working on new materials.
Yeah, it takes time. I understand.
And it kind of very it's so different from what I did with my DKO. Sounds so different.
Collaborating with anybody?
Maybe I haven't really because I'm still at that very early stages that I have new ideas and new sound coming from myself. New ideas that I realized I could actually make some music out of it.
Oh, okay. And that starts on the piano.
No, it's a start. I mean, a lot of it my voice.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which you haven't done before?
No.
Okay, so that's new. That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. We'll look forward to that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, as always.
Thanks for watching.
Yes. See everybody next time. Cool. Thank you, man. That was fun.
It means you're not happy with any one thing and you go try something else and then another thing. Oh, okay.
She says, what does your t-shirt say?
Oh. Bonnie and Clyde. You know that movie?
Bonnie and Clyde.
Bonnie and Clyde, yeah.
Let's say real quick. For those who are wondering, his t-shirt says
Bonnie and Clyde.
As in the movie featuring Angela Davis and the other lady.
Yeah, yeah. That films though, I still remember the last scenes, when when they were driving through the worker.
Yeah.
They want to change the tires, but then they end up being surrounded by the police, and then they all and then they all dies
Spoiler alert. Actually, I want to ask you real quick. What are some films and movies that you might be watching now that inform your work?
Wow, good questions. I never
films and books. Sorry.
I'm never really a film buff myself, but from time to time I always came across some classic movies. I actually last year I watched Odyssey 2001, and then I do the Blade Runner, the original.
Oh, classic.
And
that's my boss's favorite movie.
He likes it, and I feel I really want to look into more the classic violence type of thing that I really into don't blame me, but I really like Taxi Driver.
Oh.
And I also really like oh wait, what is that called, the one with the soap thing.
Oh, Fight Club.
Yeah, I like Fight Club, and I also like maybe I probably want to watch more Tarantino films.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, the way that how they portray violence is such amazing. I don't know, it's the most calm and mild person, but really into violence.
Yeah.
And I really like how the way they portray that kind of mentality, and to see a person with the darker sides of the person.
You have a dark side?
Oh, not really. No, I feel everyone got their own dark sides, but they never really admit it, or maybe they just sometimes I think I'm more like a revengeful person.
A vengeful person.
Revengeful. Is it called revengeful?
Vengeful.
Vengeful.
Revenge oriented.
Because I really hate the feeling of being cheated. The moment you're being cheated by something that, or the moment you're left alone for something, that feeling is really makes me feel very uncomfortable. It kind of makes me vengeful.
And does that come out in the music? Does it inspire music?
I think yes. The comic music, I found it somehow a bit more vengeful.
In the lyrics or in the sound?
Both.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Oh, is it not finished?
No, we're still talking.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're
because we
still
came back on. Yeah. And then books that you might be reading.
Oh, the books that I'm reading. I mean, besides academic books, though. Oh shit! What books I was reading recently? It really I have already passed my prime time of reading
I
books.
used to
I
read a
used to
lot
read
when I
a lot
was
when I
doing
was
university,
doing university.
but now I read most of the books because of my PhD studies.
Research, yeah.
But I do think and oh yeah, I was actually reading Sylvia Plath,
Oh, okay.
and the poem collection called the Ariels, which is actually one of her last collections of poems. So I'm more a poetry person
I
than
see.
Novel person. I don't
Yeah.
really like novels, but I like
Fiction.
poetry,
Yeah.
fictions. Oh my god, I feel like whenever I read a fiction, it's like oh come on, you spend like 2 pages just to describe the scene, to go in and then to go into the dialogue, and then I haven't really know what's going on with the stories.
Yeah.
So it kind of like makes me kind of like it's kind of like a turn off. But poetry is more direct. Poetry is more like
It can be.
it
Yeah.
can be direct. It could be also very descriptive. But the thing is like I enjoy reading those kind of like sentences. The drum in between sentences, the
Yeah.
flow, and the way they describe things, and then I learned a lot of like new vocabulary from reading poetries. Like some poetries, especially during the time, like they really like to use some more like obscene words that not appears in.
But there are writers who write prose very poetically as well.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
So yeah.
I think like I came across with like a black poet. I think that he is like the one who got the what is it called the Pulitzer Prize.
Oh, who is it?
Pulitzer, the Pulitzer Prize.
Pulitzer Prize, but
the new one. And he's a queer poet.
Oh, is it James Baldwin?
I think it's James Baldwin, but he's black, right?
Yeah, he's passed like.
No. I think the one new one, he's black and he's queer, and he wrote a lot of like poetries on depicting queer, gay, black experiences. Yeah,
I'm trying to think.
I'm also trying to think his name anyway. Oh, assume you're asking me what's my favorite brand for clothes.
We'll find out that poet and put it in the comments. And what we're gonna end on this. What is your favorite brand of clothes?
I mean,
Supreme.
There's a lot of
Joking.
good brands. Supreme, OGs, no. I mean, I do like a lot of Comme des Garçons, Homme de, but I'm also like what's it called? Maison Margiela.
Oh, you got budget.
I like to look into those kind of stuff, like not like I have the money to spend on. There's one street. If you talk about streetwear wise, I do like a streetwear called the Boot Boy Beat.
Never heard.
But like they're really like hype up streetwear brands, like they are very very interesting brand. They only like they have roll out every month. So like by the end of the month, like the last week, but like whenever they roll out stuff, those stuff are all bootleg stuff. So basically they appropriate not appropriate, but more like they put like philosophy, rare electronic music labels, and some weird cultural shit, and then like they put the covers, they took the words, and then they took the logos and then put onto the t-shirts and stuff, and then like it all sold out just within an hour.
And that goes back to the deconstructed, because the deconstructed parties with the ghetto goth
Ghetto gothic.
Wasn't the Hood by Air founder also one of the founders of that party?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's like Madness Six.
Vince XX and
Madness
I
Six.
forget the name of the
name
other
of the
guy.
one, yeah.
But yeah, it's all connected. All of these
Yeah.
worlds are connected.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody,
this is the real ending.
Yeah.
See you on Spotify, Mixcloud, in person, at the Margiela store.
There's one
wherever.
in Tsim Sha Tsui though. The only Margiela store in Hong Kong. So
Only-
expensive though. Yeah.
10 people in at only 10 people in at a time limit. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.